So today we'll talk about MineHub Technologies, which is another investment idea of mine. MineHub is listed on the TSX Venture, ticker MHUB, okay, and on the US OTC market, ticker MHUBF. And today first, we'll take a brief look at this company's financials, so we can already have an idea about what we are dealing with here. Then we'll talk about what this company does, about what kinds of problems this company's product, this company's software helps to solve. And finally, in the end, we'll talk about where I think the stock can go. Okay, so in the end, we'll talk about MineHub's upside. Before I begin, as always, nothing in this video is investment advice, okay? And with that said, let's start. So as you can see here, MineHub currently has a market cap of 82 million Canadian, okay, which is about $56 million US dollars. And since this company's net debt stands at zero, as we can see here, that means that MineHub's enterprise value stands at roughly 80 million Canadian too. So great. Now, what are you taking home? What are you buying for 80 million Canadian? Now, if you answer this question just by looking at MineHub's current numbers, just by looking at MineHub's current financials, you will certainly get disappointed. And why do I say that? Because, as we can see here, MineHub is far from being a profitable company. And that's something you need to have in mind when thinking about investing in MineHub. Okay, we are talking here about investing in a very early stage company. So please don't come here criticizing this company because it is still not profitable. Okay, if you want profitable companies, this video is not for you. But as we can see here, according to Yahoo Finance, over the last 12 months, MineHub delivered only 1.5 million Canadian in revenues, while its operating expenses stood at 7 million. So please have this in mind. And in the end, in the last 12 months, we are seeing a net loss of 5.7 million. Besides, the company is also burning a lot of cash. As we can see here, in the last 12 months, MineHub has burned 6.4 million. So that's why I said that if you judge MineHub by its current financials, you will get disappointed. You will think that this is the worst company in the world. So please have this in mind. MineHub is an early stage business, and to invest in MineHub is to invest in the idea that their plan will work and that this company in the end will deliver very positive numbers. So yeah, if you judge this company by its current numbers, you will certainly think that it's not worth diving deeper in its story. And you will certainly think that this company is super expensive, right? After all, you are paying 80 million for a company that is delivering only 1.5 million in revenue, that isn't profitable. So if you look at MineHub this way, MineHub certainly seems very expensive. However, I don't think that's the case. And I think we need to look at MineHub in a different way. But in my opinion, as you will understand, I don't think MineHub is expensive at all. I mean, you are paying 50 million for a company that, as you will see, could easily get to 1 billion, okay? And again, nothing in this video is investment advice. So this was a quick overview of MineHub's numbers. MineHub's current market cap and enterprise value stand at 80 million Canadian, which is equal to about $50 million, right? And in the end, you were paying this amount for an unprofitable company, for a company that almost has no revenues, right? So it certainly doesn't look like a good deal to invest in MineHub. However, we still have a lot to cover. We'll talk about valuation again later, okay? I will explain to you why I believe MineHub could reach a market cap of $1 billion, as I just mentioned. However, let's now talk about what MineHub does, okay? And that's very important because it's crucial to understand what this company does, the clients it has, how much it costed to build the current platform. We need to understand all these things to think about MineHub's valuation. Only this way it's possible, in my opinion at least, to think properly about where the stock could go. And with that in mind, let's now talk about what MineHub does. So MineHub is a technology company that offers a platform, an operating system for the commodities industry, for the commodity sector. You see, think about how complex is the operation of a company such as Codelco, which, by the way, is the biggest copper miner in the world, and which, by the way, is already using MineHub's platform to manage 50% of its operation.
The contract we have with Codelco covers their refined copper business, which is about half of their business.
Okay, so I can say that Codelco is using MineHub for half of their operations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll later talk about MineHub's clients and partners, but just for you to know the kind of names we have here in MineHub. Codelco is already a paying customer, so have this in mind, okay? Anyway, let's imagine how complex is the operation of such a miner. I mean, you need to take the copper from the ground, which is a very difficult task. Then you need to take this copper to a processing facility. Then you might need to transport this processed copper to the port by train, so you can ship this material, your product, to the other side of the world, let's say to China. Then your copper arrives in China, needs to be transported to somewhere else. So it's a very long and complex supply chain.
Because this is really the difficulty in managing these orders, is that you have material coming from all over the world, and you have a huge, usually you have many, many suppliers. One of our customers receives more than 500 trucks in one day at one location, and they have multiple locations.
And the problem is that the commodities industry, and especially the mining sector, which is where MineHub really began, but the problem is that this industry is still very old school. It is still operating mainly using Excel and emails. The problem is that you need to have a lot of control to properly manage this kind of operation. And that's where MineHub comes in. With MineHub's platform, the miners, such as BHP, Codelco, Vale, can have full visibility in real time of all their operations.
We understand the entire sort of trajectory or journey of material as part of a transaction, and then we'll connect to every node or sort of stop along the journey, every warehouse, every trucking carrier, every rail line, every shipping line will be connected to our platform in order to send us data that we need in service of our customer, whether that's tracking data or digital documents or ETAs in terms of when the shipment is going to arrive, or information around schedules. When is something planning to ship? What has already shipped?
So that's what MineHub does. It offers a software that helps commodity companies to track their operations. And that's crucial because if you cannot track things properly, first, you lose a lot in terms of efficiency, right? Which means money. But secondly, to properly track your operation is very important, because if you cannot do that, you become much more vulnerable to frauds. And over the past few years, the commodities industry has simply been haunted by frauds. For example, let's take a quick look at Trafiguras nickel fraud case?
Well, Trafigura has become one of the world's largest energy and metals traders, and they had never actually opened the containers in the manner that they were trading. And when they did so recently, after a 2-month investigation, they found there was no nickel in the containers. As a result, they believe that they have been the victims of systemic fraud. They're now taking legal action against an Indian businessman and some companies associated with that. And they're taking a $577 million impairment as a result of the fraud.
So as you've heard, Trafigura had to take a $577 million loss only because of one fraud case. So that's why it's so important for you as a company, as a commodity company, to have an excellent operating system, one that is unforgeable.
Okay, and how can you guarantee the provenance of the data?
That's another great question. So a key differentiator from MineHub is that we work very hard to automate data from the source. So we'll understand where material is coming from, whether it's from a warehouse or a port or directly from the producer's mine. And we'll actually either connect to that system, if possible, via API or EDI, or we'll work on another automated way of pulling in data, whether it's in automated email with an Excel report every day outlining all the shipment information. But the point is that it's system generated, it's automatic, and it's automatically entered to our platform. So it's not manipulated. There's no not prone to manual error. And so that really helps to increase the accuracy and the timeliness of the data and sort of ensure that it's true and accurate.
Okay, because if I remember correctly, you say on the website that you ensure that the data remains usable, shareable, verifiable, and unforgeable. Is that the only way you're doing it, through automation, or are there other technologies or processes that help with that as well?
That's referring to our blockchain technology. There's an aspect of the platform which has the most sensitive data, the most commercially sensitive data, which is related to a process called the assay exchange in the concentrates market. And we do utilize blockchain to sort of safeguard and ensure the immutability of that most highly sensitive commercial data. So that's the other way that we protect data on the platform, is utilizing blockchain in certain aspects.
So that's why you need to have a tracking system such as MineHub, because the price of not having one can be simply enormous due to frauds. Besides, an operating system like MineHub has become very important because a lot of new regulations are emerging that require you to trace your entire supply chain. So for instance, now you need to be able to identify the exact origin of your copper and to measure the carbon emissions generated during production. So that's another reason why a system like MineHub has become so vital.
And that's the other aspect that I should have mentioned in terms of helping in the momentum shift. So an increased focus on sustainability and the need for reporting around what we say provenance, or the origin of information of raw materials like copper, as well as increased reporting around emissions, whether they're transportation emissions, production emissions, scope 3, 1, 2, or 3 emissions, as well as compliance, ESG reporting around compliance with certain regulations. They could be human rights regulations, they could be federal regulations, they could be internal company regulations or sort of commitments to shareholders. And so this increasing need for transparency and reporting around ESG data is also very much helping to drive commercial momentum and usage of the platform, because that data relies on understanding the shipment flows. And ultimately, that's what we do, is we have full visibility into all of the shipment flows for our customers.
Can you comment a bit about the battery passport and about other ESG regulations that are coming in and that are making the lives of these commodities, these mining companies, much harder?
Yeah, absolutely. When you go to buy a car now, I'm not sure how it is in Brazil, but I'm sure it's similar. There's a sticker on the window that tells you the information about the car, how many miles per gallon you're going to get, or miles per liter, perhaps. How much you should expect to pay to maintain the car, and other information like that is just on the sticker on the window. But those metrics are sort of different when we start talking about hybrid electric vehicles and electric vehicles, right? Countries, increasingly, the United States, Europe, Japan has already implemented this. They want to know the sourcing of the minerals that went into the battery, and they want to know the scope of the emissions that are associated with them. And so what these countries are starting to require, it's partly required already in the US, with the Inflation Reduction Bill that we passed a couple of years ago, that, you know, these minerals that go in these batteries that are going to get tax credits, they have to prove that the minerals came from North American Free Trade Agreement countries. You know, in Japan, they started requiring this data last year, and the European Union will start requiring it in 2027. And it just looks like this. I mean, it looks like a sticker on the window, and it'll say, you know, there's X amount of pounds of lithium in this battery. It was sourced from Australia, and these are the amount of emissions that went along with it. Same with the cobalt, same with the manganese, same with the nickel, etc. So that I was going to say, that's great, but in order to have all that, you need to collect all that data, right? Someone's got to be collecting, analyzing, sorting that data, and making it easy to read. And there's only a couple of companies in the world that can do that, right? And one of them is MineHub. And so, you know, if you want to track the emissions of nickel mining that goes into batteries, you've got to put all that data into a database somewhere, right? Starting from the mine, you know, how much diesel was burned in the trucks and the loaders and the excavators. I mean, all that stuff has to be tracked. And so, again, MineHub is one of the few companies that can do that.
So you've heard all that, right? So that's why an operating system, a tracking system such as MineHub, has become so vital for commodity companies. Because first, that means efficiency, right? Besides, it helps you with fraud and with the regulations, the ESG regulations that are emerging. So, these are the kinds of problems MineHub helps to solve, and that's what MineHub does. However, MineHub is also entering in the financing part of the commodity sector through their partnership with another company called Surecomp. Surecomp has a platform called Revo, and MineHub is working with them to create a finance solution for commodity companies. And here's a part of my interview with Andrea, MineHub CEO, about this part of the business, just so you can understand it really well. I understand that Surecomp allows MineHub to enter in the financing part of the commodity sector. Now, my difficulty is to understand what this part of your software allow companies to do in practice. Like, can you help me to kind of visualize what it helps companies to do, what it means for companies?
It's very straightforward right now. It's in a lot of ways, it's quite basic, but it's also very powerful. So, you know, one of the key steps with financing is presentation of documents, presentation of bill of lading, which is the title document for the cargoes, for the physical cargo, which is being financed. And also, you know, the invoice and these critical documents that are necessary as part of the financing. And one of the challenges, one of the key challenges that banks face and even companies face in the financing process is that simple, it seems simple, you know, just sending the documents. But a lot of times they're paper documents, they need to be FedEx, or, you know, there's delays because they manually get sent. And so what we're doing is we're just solving that problem where we already have those documents, we already have those shipments, we're validating that they're real because we're tracking them. We pull them in directly from the supplier's system, internal system, or directly from the shipping line. And so all of that is validated and it's already in our system. Nobody needs to manually send it over. It just automatically flows to the bank. So it helps the companies where they're getting letter of credit financing for their commodities transactions. It just solves one, it seems very simple, but it's the kind of the main challenge that could delay the financing or the LC process. And then from the banks, what we're in discussions with banks is trying to see if by sharing this information, which is validated and all automatic and systematic, can actually, if the risk is mitigated and the efficiencies justify lowering the financing fees as a result. So it could help participants. They don't have to, it saves them time because they're not manually having to share this information. It mitigates risk for them, helps them to speed up the whole financing process, but it could potentially get them access to lower rates. And that's the piece that we're working on together with Surecomp.
Now, with all this information, I think we can close this chapter about what MineHub does, right? So, MineHub offers a platform, a tracking platform that, for example, also helps companies with the financing part of the business. And MineHub's goal is to become the operating system of this industry. And that's really powerful, as we'll see later. But okay, intent is one thing, right? Execution is another. Okay, MineHub wants to become the backbone of the commodities industry, but will it actually succeed? I mean, if this sector is so old school, that means they must be very resistant to change, right? So, who is actually going to sign with MineHub? Who is actually going to use their platform? And that's a really crucial question in this investment thesis. And that's why we'll now talk about the names that are already using MineHub software. So as we see here in their last investor presentation, MineHub has more than 200 global companies in their ecosystem. Now that doesn't mean 200 paying clients, okay? Because you have paying customers and free customers that are still testing the platform. But today, and that's very important for us, but today MineHub has only 12 paying customers, okay? But okay, that's the first thing. MineHub already has more than 200 global companies in their ecosystem. And here we can also see some names. So first we can see Codelco's name. In fact, Codelco was actually one of MineHub's first clients, okay? Besides, we can also see Sumitomo Corporation, Superior Essex, Southwire, and this company here, ALS, which is an Australian company. Now, as I've mentioned, Codelco is the largest copper miner in the world, okay? And they are using MineHub. So that means something. I mean, Codelco wouldn't use a product that isn't top-notch. So we have already a very big player using the software. Besides, Sumitomo Corporation, as we've seen, is also using MineHub. Now, which company is that? Sumitomo Corporation. Sumitomo Corporation is a giant Japanese company with a market cap of $41 billion. Besides, as we see here in this investor presentation recorded in 2023, right? So as we see here, we have really big names using MineHub, such as BHP, which is one of the largest miners in the world. So let's see where BHP market cap stands at. So, as we see here, BHP is a $154 billion market cap company. Okay, so that means something. Moreover, Vale is also using MineHub, according to this slide. Vale, just recalling, Vale in turn is a $56 billion company. Zijin Mining is also a MineHub user. Zijin Mining Group has a market cap of 130 billion. And by the way, this is a Chinese company, and MineHub is also entering the Chinese market, as we see in this press release. But as you can see, several multi-billion-dollar companies are using this platform. And man, of course that means something. First, these clients mean that MineHub software must be really good, right? And secondly, these clients also represent that MineHub could indeed become the backbone, the operating system of this industry. Well, if all these giant players are using this platform, well then, this goal might not be so unachievable. So that's the first important point about MineHub's clients. Okay? MineHub has already very big players using its software. Now, before we talk about the network effect this business has, I want to talk again a little about valuation. Because as we've seen in the beginning of this video, if you judge MineHub by its current numbers, this stock seems incredibly expensive, right? However, as I said, I think we need to look at MineHub differently. Because again, we're dealing here with a very early stage company. So okay, judging MineHub by its current numbers, it seems very expensive. However, what I ask myself is, how much are these names, are these clients worth? How much is it worth to have BHP, to have Codelco, to have managed to sign Codelco? How much is it worth to have Vale or Zijin Mining already in your platform? Because the clients have a value too. Sometimes it is worth for a company to acquire another one just because of the clients that company has. Of course, it depends on the price, right? But you can save a lot of time and effort by buying a company that already has contracts with the clients you want to have, you want to reach. So by buying that company, you can already get to that company's clients. You already have the contracts. And depending on the contract, it can take years for you to sign it. So for example, imagine how much time it takes for you as a technology company to get to BHP, to get to Codelco. It can easily take months. It can take years. So again, how much are these clients, are these names, BHP, Codelco, Vale, Zijin Mining, how much are these names worth? Would you say it would be too crazy to say that these names, that these players are worth 20 million? I don't think that's something crazy. I think that these clients can easily be worth 20 million, especially because every time a company, a new client arrives, it also brings all its operation partners into the platform. But we'll talk about that soon. So with that in mind, I mean, if MineHub's current market cap stands at $50 million US dollars, I mean, if these clients could be worth 15, 20 million, I mean, you would be paying 2.2 times the clients the company has, right? Yes, of course, you would be paying a multiple of more than 20 times revenue. However, again, I think we need to look at MineHub differently. It's not about the current numbers. It's about the future numbers this company can deliver. So let's say the clients are worth 20 million, okay? Now, how much did it cost to build the current platform? I asked the company about that, and from what I understood, it took around $30 to $40 million to build the platform as it is, okay? However, as MineHub is the result of the merger between two companies, Waybridge and MineHub, the truth is that as these two companies were competing to achieve the same goal, kind of the same goal, right? We had overlapping costs. So my question was, so how much would it take to build a platform like yours today, right? And from what I understood, it would take around $20 to $25 million US dollars. So that means that theoretically, you would be paying 2.5 times the cost of construction of this platform. Well, looking at MineHub this way, that doesn't seem expensive to me, right? And again, nothing in this video is investment advice, okay? So that's why I don't think MineHub is expensive at 50 million US dollars, at 80 million Canadian. Considering the value of the clients and considering also how much it would cost to build a similar platform, well then, I don't think $50 million is expensive. And with that said, let's now cover MineHub's network effect, which is a crucial point in this investment thesis. You see, something I really like about MineHub is the network effect this company, this business has. Now, just to recall, what is the network effect? Well, Think about Instagram, okay? Would you have an Instagram account if no one you knew was there? Of course not, right? On Instagram, the more people you know there, the better. The more incentive you have to be there too, right? So, the more people join, the more people are attracted. And that is the dynamic of the network effect. Now, how does that apply to MineHub? Well, as I said, every time a new paying client arrives, it brings all its operating partners to the platform. Thus, these operating partners get a demo account in MineHub and already start using it.
When we sign a customer like Codelco, we implement the platform with their entire supply chain. So when we implement for all of Codelco's refined copper sales, every customer that buys refined copper from Codelco will receive an account on our platform. They will be trained on how to use the platform, and they actually have access, and they're connected in what becomes a portal for them, a customer portal or a supplier portal for them. So that's one of the key touch points, is actually providing access to your counterparties and training and engaging them to have better access to better data via our portal.
So every time a new paying client arrives, it brings with it dozens of potential paying clients, because these operating partners will start testing the platform. And well, if MineHub's platform really adds value, well then, these demo accounts will probably turn into paying clients at some point, right? So that's why I believe MineHub will deliver very strong growth rates eventually. And I believe it will come to a point in which so many big players will be using this platform that all the other players in the industry will be forced to use it too, which will attract even more paying customers. So that's how the network effect applies to MineHub.
And this is another important point about MineHub, is that there's so many companies involved that you have to onboard them all to the platform, right? Like your diesel generator provider, your truck provider, your fleet manager, your shipping contractor, your trucking contractor, like all those companies have to come on board. And by default, that inherently means that MineHub attracts more potential customers to its platform.
And why is the network effect important? Well, because it creates a virtuous growth cycle. A company, a business that has a network effect can grow much more easily. Besides, a network effect also creates a moat. I mean, do you think it will be easy for a competitor to steal MineHub's clients once everybody is in there? Of course not. Once everybody is there in MineHub's platform, who is going to want to go through the trouble of changing their operating system, especially in an industry where changes cost so much? So that's why I think that MineHub's business will deserve very, very high multiples. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. So, now we are done with the network effect. Now, let's talk about valuation and about this company's financials. So as you've seen in the beginning of this video, MineHub's numbers are all in the red, are all negative. I mean, the company over the last 12 months has delivered around 1.5 million Canadian in revenue, while its operating expenses stand at around 7 million. So of course, this company is losing money. However, again, we need to look beyond the present, beyond the current numbers. So how do I think about MineHub's financials and about MineHub valuation? So, as we've seen, we have more than 200 companies in MineHub's platform. So we have dozens and dozens of companies that are testing this platform. Now, at some point, some of these people, some of these companies that are testing MineHub's platform will eventually decide that, well, this platform is helping me, right? So maybe I should become a paying customer. Maybe I should upgrade this software to the paying version. So I believe that at some point, some names will do that. They will upgrade to the paying account. So okay, MineHub might have only today 12 paying clients, but many more could arrive in the coming years. many more. So I was thinking the following. Well, if MineHub has, let's say, 200 companies testing its platform, well, if 20% of these companies decide to upgrade, to become paying customers, well, that means that we could see like 40 new clients arriving. So in this case, I believe that this company would be close to break even, or that MineHub could eventually indeed become profitable, right? If 40 new clients arrived. So that's how I was thinking about MineHub. And I was also thinking this way. Well, if 40 new clients arrived, would you say it would be too crazy to think that this company could eventually deliver in the short term, right? $15 million in revenue? Well, honestly, I don't think that's a crazy assumption at all, okay? I think that's totally achievable. Now, MineHub has a very scalable business, has a very strong network effect, has a very strong moat, could present very strong margins, and could also present excellent growth rates. So would you say that MineHub could trade at 10 times revenue? Well, I certainly don't think that's impossible. Actually, I believe that once this company becomes more mature, once this business starts to deliver positive numbers, well then, frankly, I think this company will deserve even higher multiples than that. But okay, let's consider 10 times revenue. Well, in that case, with 15 million, and let's say US dollars here, okay? To make things easier. So, 15 million in revenue times 10, well then we would arrive at a market cap of 150 million. So if the company is trading at a market cap of 50 million only, well that means that we would have already an upside here, an upside potential here of 200% in this case, considering these premises, these assumptions. However, these are extremely conservative numbers. Now, why do I say that? Because here we considered a conversion rate of only 20% and a pool of only around 200 potential clients. However, listen to this. What percentage of these potential clients do you expect to convert into paying customers? What would be a reasonable number in your view? Would counting on, let's say, 20% of them be too optimistic? I believe that wouldn't be too optimistic, but can you give us a little color on that?
I think it's way more than 20%. The question is going to be when. So I think we've really invested in creating the right foundation. We have product market fit. We have really strong leaders advocating for us. We have a strong network. We have a tool that's been tested. We have many, many conversations and a huge amount of interest. But every company is going through their own process, and that process will take time. So, I think 80 to 90% is the number. I think the question is when, and that we're super well positioned to convert all of them. It's just going to be when the market is ready, and we're doing all the right things to push that forward.
So did you hear that? If I was considering a conversion rate of only 20%, as we've heard, according to Andrea, we could actually see a conversion rate much higher than that. For example, we could see a conversion rate of 80%. So in the coming years, we could see much more than only 40 new clients arriving. Now, I was also being conservative because I was considering a total pool of only 200 potential clients. However, take a listen to this other clip. Is the number of companies testing your platform increasing? Because according to your most recent presentation, there were nearly 200 names in your ecosystem. Does that mean 200 potential clients too?
It does. Yep. But those are, so it's a good way to think of customers in 3 stages. An active customer, which means that they're paying us money to use the platform broadly for their business. Free counterparties or counterparties, which are connected to our platform and sharing data seamlessly for those paying customers. So they are either suppliers or buyers of those customers. So we Codelco is our paying customer. Codelco sells to hundreds of customers throughout the world. Those customers get a free account, and that's kind of the freemium counterparties that we classify. And then there's,
and that's how you build MineHub's network effect, right?
Exactly. And then and that's different from our sales prospects or potential customers. So our sales team works very hard to build a sales pipeline of potential customers, which is customers outside of our existing ecosystem that we're introducing MineHub to, that we're explaining the value proposition to, that we are in the process of explaining to them why they should be using the platform. And those are the prospects that I refer to when I talk about the sales pipeline. And we have a very sort of rigorous process for tracking that with different stages, everything from like introduction to the last stage is the contract negotiation phase. And so those prospective companies in the sales pipeline is way more than 200. Okay. I don't know the exact number. It's over 1,000. It's many companies that we are in conversations with. But as we talked about,
over 1,000.
There are many opportunities. Now that we've expanded our outreach outside of copper and aluminum, and now that we can leverage AI tools, we have been able to do more outreach than ever before.
So as you've heard, we have much more than only 200 potential clients. Actually, according to Andrea herself, we have more than 1,000 names in the sales pipeline, okay? So, would you say that MineHub could eventually have 100 paying clients? Would you say that's impossible? I don't think so. I mean, if MineHub is talking to 1,000 companies, and if we could see a conversion rate of like 70-80% over time, right? I mean, counting on 100 clients doesn't seem like an aggressive bet for me. It doesn't seem an aggressive expectation. The point I'm trying to make is this. Yes, MineHub's current numbers might still be in the red. Yeah, that's true. MineHub is still losing money. However, as we've seen, many new clients could arrive, and this would completely change the game. So don't be surprised if MineHub starts signing a lot of new clients, and if MineHub's revenue starts growing a lot. For me, MineHub could easily deliver like $20 million in revenue. If many new clients arrive, of course that's possible. And well, if you put a 10 times sales multiple on that, well, you reach a market cap of 200 million. So that's why I don't think MineHub is expensive at the current price. Now in this chapter, in this part of the video, I would like to talk about how MineHub could reach a market cap of $1 billion. Yes, you heard that right. I think MineHub could be a $1 billion market cap company, if they deliver, of course. And I say that because if you come here to MineHub's investor presentation, you will see this slide here. So in this slide, we can see MineHub's total addressable market. And as we see here, considering only the markets in which MineHub is already active, so considering these markets here, copper and aluminum, iron ore, and recycled metals. So with these markets, MineHub could deliver in the end $610 million in revenue. And let's recall, we were thinking about MineHub's valuation considering 15 million in revenue. So maybe I was being really too conservative. However, MineHub is also planning to enter in other markets. So if they enter in these markets here, zinc, lead, and nickel, agriculture, and chemicals, if they enter in these segments, these markets could generate, in the end, more 725 million in revenue. So in the end, in total, MineHub could generate $1.3 billion US dollars in revenue. Now, of course, that to deliver $1.3 billion in revenue, they would need to deliver 100%, right? However, we don't need to count on $1.3 billion. So now that you've already seen MineHub's total addressable market, MineHub's total potential revenue, would you say it's impossible for this company to deliver, let's say, $100 million in revenue? Well, again, I think that's far from impossible. Now, if you put a 10 times multiple On that, you reach a market cap of $1 billion. So that's how I think MineHub could reach a market cap of $1 billion. However, from the current levels, this would pretty much be a 20x investment. And again, nothing in this video is investment advice, okay? And well, with that, I think we've already covered MineHub's investment thesis. Now, before we close this video, I would like to talk about two additional things. So first, let's talk about risk. You see, it's very easy to get excited with such a massive potential, with a potential 20x investment, right? However, of course we have risks here. And the main risk here, in my view, is execution. You see, as I said at the beginning of this video, MineHub's investment thesis is predicated on the idea that this company will be able to execute their plan and that more and more paying clients will come on board. However, that could not happen, right? The company could fail in that regard and new clients could simply not arrive. I don't think this will happen. However, it is certainly a risk. Now, if new paying clients don't materialize, and if the company fails to reach at least break-even, well then, things will probably get ugly. And I say that because, well, as we've seen, the company, MineHub, is still burning cash. MineHub is still operating at a loss. So, okay, MineHub might have a net debt of 0 today. However, if they continue to burn cash, they will need to finance themselves somehow, which means they will need to take on debt or dilute shareholders. So in my view, that's the main risk, execution. However, I believe MineHub's management team will deliver. Otherwise, I wouldn't be invested in the stock, right? And to close this video, I would like to share with you that my average price is at 49 cents, around that. And here we are talking US dollars, okay? And my plan is to buy more shares now in January and in the coming months. I'm not planning to buy only MineHub. However, MineHub is definitely on my list. Definitely. I really think this could be a multi-bagger investment. Okay? And with that said, that was MineHub's investment thesis. That's it for today, and see you next time.